I mean, you're buying marijuana, for crying out loud. I don't need to have an Apple Store experience to go buy weed. So story time. I thought I would make a story time video talking about and sort of giving my experience and what I have seen with the whole medical marijuana movement here in California, because I have definitely seen things change quite a bit. It looks like the industry is becoming very, very tight with regulations. I also want to point out in this video is for educational purposes. I'm not trying to influence anyone or anything. I'm just telling a story and just talking about the industry and how I've seen the industry change here in California. I understand a lot of places in the US marijuana is completely illegal, and I also understand some countries marijuana is completely illegal, but however, where I live, it's totally not illegal, and it's totally normal, and it's a cool thing. So let's fast forward back in time. I want to just sort of give a little story about my whole introduction to the medical marijuana industry in California. So I guess this started about 10 years ago when I first moved to California. When I first moved to California, I moved to Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara was really, really awesome, really cool. I remember I stayed in Carpinteria for a couple weeks, and then I found this place in Santa Barbara. Carpinteria was like 15-minute drive away. And moved into this new place, met a roommate, and one of the roommates was super cool, and he was a stoner, right? No big deal. California, that's what people do, right? He and one day he invited me. He was like, "Yo, let's go for a walk. Let's go get some bud." And I had no idea what he meant by that. Up into this point in time, my perspective of going to get bud was going to a dealer and buying weed. You know, some guy pulls out a bag and he, you know, gives you a little bit, and you know, you give him some cash, and that's just how it goes. That was just how I thought this whole thing would go. But no, it did not go like this at all. So my homie had a medical card. Well, not a medical card, but a medical sheet of paper. Back then, I guess the cards are popular, but a lot of places wanted you to walk around with this sheet of paper, and it had like the doctor's signature and the doctor's stamp, like the official seal and all that. And it also had like helpful information. So like if you get in trouble somewhere, there's like a special phone number that I guess the authorities could call to figure out if this is your actual prescription, or to just find out more information about the things that you have, which I don't even think that number was really, I don't even know if that number actually worked. Like if you call that number in the middle of the night, would someone even answer the phone? So you know, you have to have that paper. So my homie and I, we show up to this place, and it almost looks like this could be someone's living room in someone's house. Nothing too fancy. I mean, it kind of looked like a whole bunch of college kids lived there. So we walk in, and everybody is just smoking weed, just like normal. And I remember that, I think the guy's name was TJ or something. It doesn't matter what his name is or anything like that, because this place is long closed down. But I think this guy's name was TJ, and my friend that I went with, we were looking for TJ because TJ was the man that you had to show your paper to and stuff like that. So my friend shows his paper to TJ. TJ asks no questions about me. I'm just some random guy, right? And so this was in like this front area, and then we go to like sort of this back area, and once we go to this back area, they have like these huge like jars of like marijuana like everywhere, and it was pretty awesome to see, especially when I had no idea that this was something that I was gonna see when when my homie told me let's go down and get bud. I had no idea what he was talking about. I had no idea he was talking about like, we're gonna go to a dispensary, and this is how we do it in California. Like I said, I just moved to California at that point in time. And as time changed, I remember that place ended up getting closed down because in California, different places, different cities can pass different laws. So in Santa Barbara, they would allow certain weed stores, but then other weed stores, they would shut them down. Like the feds would come in and shut down the whole process. And if you guys want to know how that whole process worked, so marijuana has been illegal for years, like federally in the US for as long as I can remember. It's been illegal, but places like California has said we're not gonna prosecute people. So it's kind of like it's not really illegal in California unless it's a federal officer. But think about it, a federal officer is not going to just come up to me and like question me and ask to see what's in my backpack. Federal officers, they do they do big things. They do Fed things. They go after bank robbers and large drug dealers, and they don't just come after normal people for, running a red light on a skateboard. So, the feds would go after the medical marijuana dispensaries, because in California, you could open a medical marijuana dispensary, and it was totally cool. And California liked that because the medical marijuana dispensaries were paying taxes to California. So California loved it. The feds didn't like it. So the feds would show up and they would go raid the place. And if you happened to be in the shop buying weed with your medical card at that time, it would just really suck, because you would get caught up in that whole deal. Like you would go down with the feds, and that would really, really suck, especially if you're just someone who is just stopping to buy a couple joints. That has all changed, okay? I think that battle was going on for years. I remember in San Francisco, it got to a point where the feds would bust a medical marijuana dispensary, and they would literally go open another one within 2 to 3 weeks, because they were making that much money. And also back then, it was all cash. Like, you couldn't use a credit card, because these companies were basically selling drugs, weed, and drugs is federal, and then money goes through the bank, and the bank is federal. So a lot of these medical marijuana companies couldn't even accept credit cards, and they also couldn't have bank accounts. And of course, they were making tons of money because they're selling weed, for crying out loud. I mean, you know how much money you can make selling weed? As long as you got weed and you know people that want to smoke weed, you can make a ton of money, and that's what these companies were doing. And these companies were just having a hard time, because they would get robbed and stuff like that, because if you're a robber, you can go rob a medical marijuana dispensary, and maybe there's 2 security guards there, and maybe they don't have guns, and you can get away with a ton of money because they have only cash there, versus going to rob a bank where, that's like straight Fed, like that's federal time. Like you wouldn't want to rob a bank. You'd rather rob a medical marijuana dispensary, because, the feds are already after them anyway. Think about it. I don't even know why I said that. I'm just like compare and contrast, like robbing a medical marijuana dispensary versus a bank, especially when the feds are after the people that are running the medical marijuana dispensary, and they're totally in for the banks. So that situation lasted for a while. Now, I haven't really heard of the feds closing down any marijuana dispensaries, because California and the feds came to this agreement, and the feds basically said, California, we're going to leave you alone. We understand that you're collecting tons and tons of tax revenue, and we just won't bother you anymore. So now we're going to fast forward to about 2 years ago, here in San Francisco. San Francisco is great. It's good. You can buy weed from tons of stores, and now, 2 years ago, you can even buy weed on a credit card, or you can use an ATM card, which is not that big of a deal. But some people just don't use cash, and some people just would rather use a credit card. So now it's sort of fully legal, okay? But here comes the regulations. And this is the part of the video. This is why I wanted to make this video and want to talk about all these different things, because I think that this is the most important part of the regulation I'm going to tell you guys right now. The regulation comes around, and with regulations can do 2 things. Regulations can make things really, really good, or regulations can literally kill a business or kill an industry. Right now, the sharing economy, here comes the regulations, and who knows what's going to happen? Like, is this going to kill the sharing economy, or is this going to keep the sharing economy the way it is? So regulations coming with medical marijuana. Okay, so now 2 years ago, I remember going to a medical marijuana dispensary, and how did that work? I would always go to the hood places. Now, what I mean by the hood places, I'm talking about the places that are not in the best neighborhoods, and they're not as polished and not as developed. I mean, you're buying marijuana, for crying out loud. I don't need to have an Apple Store experience to go buy weed, okay? So I would go to this hood store, and it was at like 6th and Market, and I remember walking in. They would ask for your ID. They would just look at your ID and flip it over and see if you had this sticker on the back of your ID. Whenever you would go to the medical marijuana dispensaries and you would show your card, they would sort of put you in the system, and they would put this sticker on the back of your driver's license. So if you ever went there, you just show your driver's license. They just let you in. They didn't keep track of your name. They didn't keep track of your purchases. They just let you in. It was really, really simple. It was really cool. I kind of like that, because at least my name is not on some list and it says Jermaine bought weed this day and Jermaine bought weed that day, and it just kind of freaks me out, right? So back then, you could totally do that. Now, next door was the total opposite. Okay, next door at 9th and Mission was this place called Spark. Spark definitely catered to a different clientele. Spark was more like upscale, and they're just more, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it, it's just really bougie. It's one of those bougie type clubs. They have a lot of money behind them, and they just wanted to make their product perfect, and they wanted to really appeal to the tech community. And they just, you know, you would go inside, you could hang out, you can smoke, you can chill, but it was never a place I'd want to hang out and smoke and chill. I would much rather hang out in the hood place because the prices are much cheaper. And also, a lot of the people that would hang out in the hood place were just like more like local people from the community. And at Spark, the place next door, it was mainly like techies and transplants and, you know, people that are like, oh, I just spent $45 on a joint and I'm just really happy because, yeah, I work in tech and I smoke weed, and, you know, I don't care. I can spend $45 on a joint because I work in tech, you know. It was just a different clientele. Spark was like just really strict. Okay, really strict. The security guards are really, really strict. The other place is called Relief at 9th and Mission. Very, very chill, very, very laid back. So at Spark, I noticed everything came in containers, okay? Everything was in a container. Everything had like this child-proof label. Everything had this like child-proof top on top. A lot of the weed would come in boxes. Like everything had labels on it. It was all basically very fancy and designer. The thing I did not like about the Spark dispensary, everything that they sold at Spark was packaged. Nothing was pre-packaged. Now on the flip side, at Relief at 9th and Mission, nothing was packaged. Everything was in big jars. So you'd walk in, it would be this big jar, and you can walk up and you can smell. And you can smell, oh, that smells really good. That smells really, that doesn't smell good. That smells like crap. I don't want that one. I want this one. So you could walk up and smell this big jar of weed, right? And you could really pick. You get a really good flavor of what you're getting. Well, that was a couple years ago. Nowadays, every single marijuana dispensary that I've been to around here, they only sell marijuana in containers. And the problem with selling marijuana in containers is they have dates on them. They have the date that it was harvested, and it also has the date that it was packaged. Now, with the regulation comes around, marijuana dispensaries now have to sell things in packages. They have to have nutritional labels on them. It has to tell you how much THC is in it. It has to tell you how much CBD is in it. It has to give you all of this information. But this is one more added cost on the medical marijuana, the whole industry, because now if you're a farmer, now you have to pay extra, and you have to go and have your marijuana tested, and you have to have all these different jars, and you have to have all these stickers, and you have to have childproof containers, and sometimes they have to come in boxes, and the regulations have just changed the industry. It really changed the crop. I remember when I first moved to San Francisco, it was amazing, like going to a marijuana dispensary, because it was actually cool. Like you would need to go get a medical marijuana card, and getting a medical marijuana card was a complete joke. I remember when I got my first medical marijuana card, I went to the doctor and I told the doctor that I had a hard time sleeping on Tuesdays, like twice a year. And I got a prescription for medical marijuana. Like I had a hard time sleeping on Tuesdays twice a year, and I got a prescription for weed. Nowadays, you don't need a prescription at all. Like anyone can come to a medical marijuana dispensary and you're good to go. Like even if you have a passport, like you good to go. You need an ID to get into a club. I was at a club like a week ago, and it was a whole bunch of Chinese guys. Like they were straight up from China. Like I can totally tell they were straight up from China. And they were talking about my skateboard, and like I was like, yeah, man, these guys over here smoking weed. You can't be doing that in China. Anyway, I'm making a video talking about the medical marijuana industry and how it's changed. So now it's just not the same. It's not the same. It's not what it used to be. Back in the day, the crop was so much better. It was so much fresher. It was so much fresher. Nowadays, you can go to a dispensary and you can look on the package and see like when it was packaged, and some of these things are packaged like 2 months ago. Like I don't want crop that was packaged 2 months ago. I want crop that's fresh, you know. And it's very different now. Like back in the day, like you could easily get sticky bud. You could easily get sticky crop all the time. And nowadays if you go into a medical marijuana dispensary, like chances of you finding sticky crop is like, it's just very, very hit or miss, because everything's packaged, and you'd have to get something that was packaged like a week ago. But then if it was even packaged a week ago, it still had to be packaged, and then it had to go to the testing phase. I don't exactly know if they test the marijuana first and then it's packaged, or if it's packaged and then it's tested. I don't exactly know how that works. But yeah, it has definitely changed. It's definitely changed a lot. Like, it's changed so much, the medical marijuana industry. And now it's not even medical marijuana anymore. It's just recreation. It's just, it's just weed. It's just, you want some smoke? Yeah. You want some smoke? Yeah. But anyway, I thought I would make a video just talking about the medical marijuana industry and how I've watched it change, and how this is sort of, I don't know, I don't think it's changed for the good. I mean, I think the regulations are basically just killed it, But then at the same time, you have to regulate things once they get to a certain level. Once things get too big, you have to sort of have control over it. Otherwise, it's just going to be too out of hand. But I don't know. What do you guys think about this? What do you guys have to say about this? Where do you guys live? I'm just very curious to know what you guys think about this. Is marijuana becoming legal in your state soon? I'm very curious to know. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this video up, but like, comment, subscribe, and thanks a lot for watching. Peace out, yo.